Hello all, in this video let me explain you what do you mean by pickling and unpickling in Python. It's a very simple concept and a very beautiful concept. Okay, so pickling is sometimes called as serialization, or it's same as serialization, pickling. Okay, and unpickling is sometimes called as deserialization. Unpickling is called as deserialization. Pickling and unpickling. Pickling is also called as serialization. Okay, and unpickling is called as deserialization. One second, deserialization. Okay, now what do you mean by pickling and unpickling, or what do you mean by serialization or deserialization? In technical terms, converting an runtime object, okay, runtime object into compressed binary format, compressed compressed binary format is called as pickling. This is called as pickling. Okay, and doing the reverse, that is getting the runtime object from a compressed binary format, okay, from a compressed binary format you are getting back your runtime object. Your runtime object is basically called as your unpickling, okay, or deserialization. Now you might ask me, what is the need for converting your runtime object into compressed binary format, or why do you want to actually bring it back into the runtime object from compressed binary format, right? So let me first explain you why do you need pickling and unpickling. Okay, now so assume that you are playing a game, okay, and in that game you have several characters, okay, say a hero, a villain, and all sorts kind of characters. So these characters are none other than, you know, they are nothing but, you know, objects. They are real-time objects. They are considered as objects, right? And in this game you have several other attributes, like you would have scored, you know, so you would have reached certain level 1 2 3, you would have crossed level 3, okay, and then your score would have been 523, and you have been playing this from past half an hour. This is a game which you are playing from past half an hour, right? So basically level, score and all is basically an attribute. So assume that when you write it in software, these would be considered as an attribute or the state of a particular game, right? And these are all your real-time objects, right? So these are all objects, or these are all state of your objects, right? Now when you're playing this game and you are 30 minutes into the game, and suddenly your mom calls you for lunch, having lunch, right? So and you know that you cannot you cannot just leave the game as it is, okay, and you cannot restart the game also, because you have been you have reached this level with so much of difficulty. You have been playing it from past half an hour, and you don't want to restart the game everything from first. You don't want to stop it, right? So what you basically do is you do a pause, isn't it? You basically do a pause. Okay, when you do a pause, what do you mean? What do you mean by you doing a pause? Pause is that, you know, you do it so that, you know, you're saying don't restart the game from first, rather keep it as it is, okay, and don't continue the game further. Let me have my lunch and come back, and then I can start from the place from where I actually paused, right? No, so that is basically called as a pause. Okay, so what you can do during the pause is that, okay, so you can basically save the state of these objects, like the level, score and all that, in a particular file. You can save it. So when you say pause, basically what is happening, okay, when you say pause, you're basically saving these states, okay, the state of these objects in a file, in a binary file, okay, in a compressed binary format, right? In a compressed binary format, in the form of 0 1s, in the binary format you are actually saving it in a file, so that, okay, once you have your lunch and come back, then you say start. Now from this pause, it can again, you know, bring it back into your real object, which is, you know, up and running, right? So you can start your objects again from, you can start running your game from start, right? So this is basically called as pickling and unpickling. So storing the real-time runtime object into the compressed binary format, okay, when you're say for example you're pausing or something like that, is basically called as pickling, and when you want to convert back your compressed binary format, the objects which were in binary format, back to the, you know, runtime objects, which is ready to, you know, get started, that is basically called as unpickling. Okay, no, so this is pickling and unpickling, or you can call it a serialization and deserialization. And one more advantage of pickling and unpickling is that, you know, when you have this in compressed binary format, you can actually transfer this, you can transfer this over a network, right? So it is easy for transferring this data over a network, right? So you might ask me, why not, you know, use a text file while doing a pause? Why don't you use a text file, okay, and write these, data there directly, level 3, score 523 and all, while pausing, and then once you have done with the pausing, when you have done with your lunch, when you're starting the game once again, then you can read this back and store it into an object, right, instead of storing it in binary format. You might ask me this question. So the answer for that is that yes, it would have been easy for you to actually write and read it back in a text file, but we being human beings, there are chances that when we try to do manual read and write of these data, we would end up reading some wrong data, right? So that is the reason we don't want to take this chance. Okay, so that is the reason we have Python's pickle module. We have Python's pickle module, which will actually do this job automatically, right? You just ask pickle to do the pickling, it will do the pickling, and you just ask the pickle module to do the unpickling, it will do the unpickling. Okay, so if you want to do the pickling, the function given by this pickle module is called as dump. Okay, you will have to dump. And if you want to do the unpickling, then the function given by pickle module is load, right? So if you say load, it will load your binary format into your object format. You will get back the real runtime object back, which is up and running. So this is basically called as pickling and unpickling. Let me show you a program. So the program here, okay, so as you can see, it's given in the material lesson 9 files chapter, right? So I'm writing and I'm creating a class object. So the objects of this class is what I would be actually doing a pickle and unpickling. Okay, so whenever I create an object of this, the constructor will learn and it will ask you for an enter the name and enter the age. So you give the enter and you give the name and age. So the moment you give name and age, this entire object would be constructed, right? So in this example, I would be creating 3 objects, okay, because I'm creating 3 objects so that I can do the pickling for 3 objects, and later I can do the unpickling for the 3 objects. Okay, so this is the module which I call it as obj.py. Okay, so it's a obj module, and then I have another file where another program where I would be actually doing the pickling. So you can see here, create a program to serialize the objects. So this is used for, this program will do the pickling part, right? So I am doing an importing of the obj module which contains our class, and then pickle module is the module which contains functions called as dump and load, which will help us do pickling and unpickling. Okay, so what happens here is that first I open the file, a binary file, because I told you that to do the pickling we need a file where I can store the binary compressed binary format, right? So this is basically jum.bin, which I am actually using, jum.bin. Okay, so this file is used for storing the compressed binary format. Okay, and then say choice is equal to yes for the first time. So when I say while choice equal to yes, it is true. So then I say I create an object of, okay, of from obj module. This is our module. This is our module, right? Where is this? Yeah, this is our module. Okay, and in this I have a class object. So I'm creating an object of this type. So when I say obj, okay, when I say obj.object, the moment I say obj.object, what happens? It will call the constructor. It calls this constructor, and after calling the constructor, it is inside the constructor I'm asking enter the name and age. That is what is output. It says enter name, I'll say Subhash, enter age, I'll say 25. So by giving those age, I'll create one first object called as O, right? Then I will dump that O onto this file, in the file binary file f1, using the function called as dump that belongs to the pickle module. So when I say dump, this is the place where your pickling is happening. Give me a moment. Okay, so this is the place where your pickling happens. This is called as pickling. This is called as pickling, or serialization is happening. Serialization is happening. Okay, and then so I'll say enter one more object. You want yes or no? So like that, this loop keeps on running for 3 times, because I'm entering 3 objects. One is Subhash 25, next is Charan 12, and then Archita 18. So I have 3 objects. So I have created 3 objects, and all the 3 objects have been dumped, okay, in the file f1 basically. So f1 is a binary file which contains 3 objects in the compressed binary format, right? So serialization is done. Now what is it I have to do? I have to again get back my objects which are in binary format back to the object format. So what is it I have to do now? Okay, so pickle module gives me another function called as another function called as load. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll say pickle dot load, right? So before doing pickle dot load, what am I doing? I'm opening another the same file jum.bin. Now for in reading format, we'll have to read back from the binary file, right? So this is basically a a file which I'll have to read. This jum.bin contains the compressed binary format which happened in this program, right? In this program, that is in the current program, I am opening the same file in the read format to read that compressed binary format back to the original object format. So I have again this pickle dot load. So load function is there to actually do the unpickling part. So load function will actually read from this binary file, and it will understand the objects that were in the compressed binary format and convert that into the real object format, right, in the OB. Okay. So now when if you want to see that whether it is really read or not, so I'll just say ob.display. As you can see over here, ob.display, you can see that where is the ob dot, here. Okay, display will ob.display will basically display the name and age, and three times I, okay, this is a loop which is in infinite. I am running this infinitely, and each time, right, until the entire file has been read. Okay, so it keeps reading the data from this file. Okay, and it starts printing the object in binary format. So the when I say ob.display, it is a proof that unpickling has happened, okay, successfully. That is the reason I am able to actually run, and I am able to print, that is display method is able to print this name and age, right. So this line pickle.load is basically doing the unpickling part. Unpickling, okay, reading the compressed binary file format and storing it into the object format ob. Okay, unpickling or deserialization. So the proof that that unpickling has happened is by seeing the display method. So we were able to call the display method of this OB object. The reason is that pickle, or the load function of pickle module, has given us the object for the binary format. It has converted the binary format. It has read from the binary format of this file, and it has given back our runtime object. That is the reason we are able to call this display method of with respect to this obj. Okay, this object, correct. Now it keeps reading, and once it reaches the end of the file, there is no more data to be printed. It just gives you, raises an exception and says EOF error, and it says end of file reached, right. So after reading all the three objects, you can see after reading all the three objects, it basically says end of file reached, and meanwhile the unpickling has happened. So this concept is a very simple concept, basically called as pickling and unpickling. So to just a quick revision. So converting your object format into your binary format is called as pickling, and converting from your binary format into your real object format is basically called as unpickling. Is that okay? So this is what happens in pickling and unpickling, right? Pickling can also be called as serialization, and unpickling can also be called as deserialization. Okay, so hope you understood this fine. Yeah, thank you, bye.